It's not a bird, it's not a plane, it's Superhero Slate. It's a modern podcast where we talk about everything that's great, like movies, TV, superheroes. It's Superhero Slate. Oh yeah.
Hello everyone and welcome to Superhero Slate, the show where we run down the latest superhero entertainment news.
We love TV, movies, and superheroes, so let's talk it all out.
My name is Chris Dillard.
And my name is Mike Royer.
And this week we're going to be talking about the release of Star Wars Andor. That came and went, and we'll talk about what that means. Black Panther gets a new magazine cover before release, and something else. We'll talk a little bit about possibly some leaked footage, Mike. I believe I sent that to you earlier this week. I don't know if you watched it. If you hadn't been out to the movie theaters, Avatar is back out there. Not the Last Airbender, the other one, the Blue People one.
The first one.
Yeah, the first one. So that's hitting theaters this weekend and more.
Yes, there's no more mincing words about it anymore. Officially here, at least in North America, it is now officially fall. We've crossed the plane where now you can fully indulge in your pumpkin spice lattes without guilt.
Yeah.
And so we'll slowly start moving into the big film season, soon enough will be November and December. But right now it's beginning of the traditional kind of television season. Yeah. So we welcomed Abbott Elementary, back into our ranks this week. We've been watching that. There was something else we were watching as well. I mean, we talked about Great British Bake Off a little bit last week. But, yeah, there's so much out there to watch right now. I mean, we record on Sundays, so we always got House of Dragon, at least in this house tonight. And I think half in your household. You said your wife was watching it right now as you record.
Yeah, she's upstairs watching it because she's like, I was waiting for you. I'm like, I don't care about Game of Thrones. I never cared about the first show. She's like, well, we watched it together. I'm like, yes, we watched it together, but that does not translate to me wanting to watch the new one. So I'll just follow up on the news. It's articles everywhere every Monday, right? Whenever I start gathering news for the next week, it's always Game of Thrones, House of Dragons.
Yeah, very still kind of water cooler-esque in a way where, the New York Times will still be writing articles about what happened on this week's episode, which doesn't always happen with TV shows.
It's right under the Wordle articles.
A show that my wife and I really like that's kind of family-friendly in the vein of something like a Modern Family. Home Economics has returned for its third season. We really like this show. And the premiere is one of those kind of milestones for an ABC television show where the cast shoots at a Disney park. So the season premiere of season 3 all takes place at Disneyland. They go to Galaxy's Edge. There's lots of lightsabers and there's Chewbacca and everything. So it does feel a little cheesy in a way because when characters kind of mention something about or in the park, they kind of use the full official name of just we gotta go or we're gonna be late for Star Wars Galaxy Edge. Nobody would say the whole thing like that, but I would say it's still a milestone, right? When you're popular enough on ABC to where they'll give you the budget and they'll let you go shoot at the park, in the middle of the night when no one's there. Yeah. So if you're a fan of those, we've talked about it before. We've grown up in the '90s. Tons of sitcoms have made their way to Disneyland or Disney World.
Always got a Disney special episode, right? There's always that one. Even the Muppets had a go to Disney World special at one point. So.
Exactly. It's you've been tapped, you've been marked, you've been knighted by the queen, whatever euphemism you want to use, right?
Well, the queen's dead, so it's knighted by the king now. So we gotta adjust our pronouns, Mike, as we move into this new era of. Yeah.
Isn't it crazy though? She was reigning for so long though.
Yeah.
That if that euphemism was working, it would have been that. I'm still gonna use it. I don't care.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah.
But yeah, we're officially in fall. We're officially in TV season, but also. Those aren't the only two pieces of media out there in the world, right? Chris, you have a little thing here you're going to talk about at the top of the show that is off the heels of Grand Theft Auto 5, which I didn't know currently ranks as the biggest grossing single piece of media ever in existence.
Yep.
I don't know if exactly those are the right words in the right order, but it's like the biggest like single thing to ever generate money in the entertainment landscape was Grand Theft Auto 5.
I'm pretty sure it came out in 2013. I had it on. I've actually played this on 2 of 3 console generations. My Grand Theft Auto 5 was on Xbox 360 when it came out. Then it had an Xbox One update, and then you can play it on, I think, the newer consoles. So I'm like, this game has it's passed through console generations, right? They knew what they were doing with this. But
I do have to say though, I haven't really played any of the newer versions of Grand Theft Auto 5, so I don't know exactly how much polish they've been able to add to it.
Yeah.
But I feel like we are in a newer generation of when they are like remaking a game or like polishing it up or bringing it to the next generation. It's not just an afterthought anymore. They're like, if we actually put a little bit more effort into it, we'll make more money off of it, a la like Last of Us, like Part 1 or Demon's Souls. Yeah. So I don't know if Grand Theft Auto 5 ever got that much treatment on it, but
it was kind of like a free upgrade. I mean, it still looks good, right? You know, the Rockstar brand, they put their work into it. So I don't think it was ever like you're not getting Grand Theft Auto 5 remake, but like every time you turned on like, oh, here's a graphics patch, here's something else, right? Just more textures, more loading, more little grass that you're not really paying attention to all at once. But this week, I guess starting last weekend through the week has been the leak of 50 plus Grand Theft Auto 6 videos from like 2019, like early alpha stages of this game, right? And I don't know if you had a chance to watch any of it, Mike, at all. I didn't go through all of them.
Yeah,
there's quite a bit.
No,
but like,
I saw.
You can tell it's beta code.
Yeah, I mean, between it, whether it's like 50 videos, I thought I saw a headline that said 90 videos.
Yeah, it could be lot more.
I never found like an official list of all of them. I just came across, I think, like a Twitter compilation that kind of threw some of the videos together. And it's kind of funny from my point of view because I'm not like a big Grand Theft Auto person. I know some people like live and breathe within that game and have, like you've said, been playing it since the Xbox 360. But I kind of saw the footage, and you can tell it's kind of like alpha or like an early build because the whole world around the character isn't exactly built. And if I remember correctly, I feel like maybe there's some like additional like developer like UI on the screen.
Yeah, like there's like code,
there's like icons or something.
Yeah, like the code will come up,
and that wouldn't be there.
Yeah, it's kind of like that those cheat codes, right, in the old games where you type something in and it would populate stuff. It's very much like that. But looking at there's 2 ways to take this. A lot of people are like, oh my gosh, we feel so bad for the developers of Grand Theft Auto. Like a leak would come out like this. Again, everyone, even the people who leak, like this is from 2019, right? This is 3 years old, kind of thing. Is one way to take it. I look at it the other way. I didn't really, for me, you can only buy a game so many times before you're just like, this is not fun anymore. So Grand Theft Auto 5 was kind of that game for me. I'm like, I played it on the one, had a really good time on multiplayer online. I've not turned it on in years. So seeing this actually kind of rejuvenated my hype for a Grand Theft Auto series, Mike, if you will. Simply because I was able to see what they're doing with it, right? You get to see it was Grand Theft Auto Vice City, location. You got to see the female protagonist and using she was in a car at some point doing some shootings, how she interacts with the world, how really kind of good the game looks, right? If anything, Grand Theft Auto games have always been ones that looked awesome when they launched, looked better over time, and they always had a bunch of other mini games inside. I'm like, how do they get all this code into one disc the whole time? It's just really, really impressive. So I mean, I know there are people who are very kind of up in arms over this. I feel bad that it was a hacker who leaked it rather than someone's like some viral marketing. But at the same time, I'm like, wow, I'm kind of ready for Grand Theft Auto 6 after 9 years, coming up on 10 years. Let's get some of this out here and see what they can do in a modern video game. Because I think there's a lot of people who listen to the show, myself included. Mike, I don't know about you, played a lot of Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City, and San Andreas, all in that one generation of video game consoles. So I think this would be a great return to form, if you will, for Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, I think a reasonable person looks at these leaks as like, okay, the game's not ready yet. This is just kind of like an unintended sneak preview that you weren't supposed to see. So take it in, go, oh, great, they're working on it. Of course they were, and then move along. But the biggest problem is the video game community is just full of tons of toxic people.
Yeah.
And the biggest problem is the age range, right? Like young people love video games, and they just do not have the social mentality to understand how to react to things like this. So yeah, if it sucks because these like developers, unintentionally go online, see like 12-year-old brats like trash talking their like totally unfinished work, which is totally unfair. And I've heard like they're worried about morale over there. I would be most worried about, I heard somebody say that like this could possibly work against the whole work from home movement, right? Of like, oh, well, if all these people weren't working from home and they were like here, physically in our office, maybe this hack wouldn't have been perpetrated. I don't think that's the case. There's if there's an internet connection and a password, there's always going to be a chance that somebody's going to be able to get in there.
It was the same people who hacked Uber as well. Like the same, it's a hacking group. That's what they do, no matter where you are, right? Like, they're gonna, if you have an email system, guess what? They're gonna find a way into your home.
Yeah,
and
it was a social engineering hack too. I don't think we know exactly what have happened, but if social engineering is happening, it means like, oh, somebody probably like found their phone number or faked an email address and emailed somebody, and they're like, oh, we're IT, we're checking on something, and somehow fish their password or something like that. But either way, yeah, it sucks. But I would say you're correct, Chris. We are level-headed people that saw the leaks and was like, okay, cool, they're working on it, and moved along.
Well, I think the other part of this is, the only reason I think this blew up is two things. One, it's Grand Theft Auto. Grand Theft Auto has always been, I guess, one of those games that has quote-unquote radicalized people about video games, right? Like, oh, you're killing hookers, you're stealing the money back, you paid for the hookers, like, you're killing people. It's a violent game. Video games cause violence. And Grand Theft Auto has always been the forefront of that, like, no, we don't, actually. But our games, do have that in there. So it's like, I think if it had been any other game, would have been right under the radar. But because it's Grand Theft Auto, it's everyone's like, I gotta know more about Grand Theft Auto, the game that's, whenever a new one comes out, there's always some sort of law getting passed to try to limit video games to people. So it's just funny.
I saw here that you have something down for Diablo 4. Did something leak?
Yes,
for that?
about an hour of gameplay of Diablo 4. It's in, I think, a closed beta or maybe a late alpha for that as well. I was able to download some of that and watch it. But like, it's just interesting that two of like very large games, like very large like visible property games, had leaks in the same week. I was like, what's next? What game do you want to leak, Mike? Because maybe if you say it out loud, it'll will it into existence here down the road. But it was very interesting. We'll talk more about another video game that was kind of surprise announced this week under kind of out of nowhere. But yeah, I think it's just interesting that all these people like. In a world where you have the internet screen recording apps, such as Twitch, OBS, whatever, and the ability to play these games, people are going to put that content out there early because they can, either for the clicks and the likes, or just because they're really hyped to play it. And to me, like you said, it gets me hyped for these games. I know what I'm looking at is not the finished version. I know people are working on it. They're years away from release. Like, this isn't coming out next month, and we should be panicking, right? Like, I've been playing the new Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 beta. It's got some problems, but I don't think they're going to be, they're not going to be realized in 2 months, like, for, like, I guess, net code connection. But, at the same time, it's fun to see it, fun to do it, so... if you do some Google searches, you can probably find this stuff. I'm not going to link it here simply because everything who shared this is getting flagged, and I don't want everything to get taken down. So, you guys can go Google search that stuff up there. On the flip side, Mike, you've been taking a dive back into a legacy franchise, if you will, right? Coming up on 40 years almost of a franchise of movies.
Yeah.
So what you got for us?
Yeah, I don't know exactly if kind of like the streaming rights just coalesced, or maybe there was like a marketing push when the kind of newest Predator movie called Prey dropped on Hulu, which unfortunately I still haven't had a chance to sit down and watch yet. But in the meantime, I've been kind of going back and catching up on some Predator movies that I've missed that have been very conveniently located for the most part on Hulu as well. So I did have a chance to watch Alien vs. Predator, which is the very first Alien vs. Predator movie. And that was actually surprisingly good. I always thought it was going to be really cheesy, especially when I heard about it when I was younger coming out. It just kind of seemed like, oh, this really just seems like a grab for cash. And I don't even think I was that sophisticated of a moviegoer at that time either. I was probably just like a really annoying teenager. But even I could look at it and go like, these things aren't supposed to be together. This doesn't make any sense. So I finally got around to watching the movie, and it wasn't half bad, actually. I thought the visual effects for 2004 were pretty convincing, and it's still that kind of like sweet spot of movie VFX where they still felt like, let's throw some practical stuff in there because it will still look better than what we can really achieve in a timely fashion on a computer. So overall, I thought the story was fun, and I'm not super invested in like the Predator or Alien lore, and I don't believe this one is considered canon, if there is a canon. In this universe at all.
Yeah, it's hard to pick this one. I think the sequel to AVP, Aliens vs. Predator Requiem, is the sleeper hit of the two, if I could be completely honest. But I don't believe you can try to make a line between Aliens and Predators and make them all work at all. I don't think it holds up.
It is a pretty easy universe to cross over, right? They're both aliens, that come across humans at some point in time. So that's all you really have to do. And like the timeline is very wide and long, so you can kind of throw any of those adventures anywhere on that timeline. But of course, after the movie ended and the director of Paul W.S. Anderson pops up on there, I was like, oh, of course. I am slowly becoming a completionist of this director that I don't like, but why do I keep watching all of his movies? I just find it pretty hilarious.
I think your subconscious is telling you something. Like literally, you're just picking them at left and right, man.
It's the part of my brain that just like wants to eat like sweet tarts or something like that. Just something that's totally calorie empty, but my body just wants. But one really interesting thing about AVP is the sequel, Alien Requiem, which I think came out 4 years later.
Yeah, 3 years later.
3 years later. Is it picks up literally exactly where the last one left off, but with a totally different creative team, at least visually as far as I can tell, because the very last shot of Alien vs. Predator, I get spoilers, but this is not really why you watch these movies, but the very last shot of Alien vs. Predator is there's a dead predator being taken away on a Predator spaceship, and then a chest burster bursts through its chest. Bam, hit the credits, right? Yep. So the next movie picks off, and it recreates that exact same scene, but the visual look is totally different. In the first one, it kind of feels more futuristic. Things are a little bit more sleek and, polished in this spaceship. Then for some reason, the director on the second one just wanted everything to look wet. Just everything in the recreated version of the second movie, everything's just wet and like drippy and dark. I'm still working my way through the sequel, which is Aliens vs. Predator: Requiem. I'm only about halfway through it right now, but everything's so wet. It takes place in like a small town on Earth. Everything's so dark, I can barely see anything. These kids were attacked in a pool, but it was so dark that you couldn't even tell who was dying. And I was like, wait a minute, one of the main characters is in this pool. Did he die? I don't know. I had to wait for them to escape the school so I could do my own head count. So it's kind of funny. But that's like its whole little own franchise. There's like a second faction of the Predator movies, which is the attempt to reignite the fan base of Predator, because you had the first Predator movie and then you had kind of like the typical titular sequel to it, Predator 2, right? Mm-hmm. And that's just an attempt to keep the franchise going. Didn't really quite work out.
The concrete jungle version. Take literally you go from one jungle to putting the Predator in a city. I mean, nothing against Danny Glover, right? I think it's fantastic, but it's a whole different vibe.
I feel like you're writing like the marketing campaign for that second one. Yeah. Welcome to the concrete jungle, and it's like underlined on the movie poster.
I'm pretty sure that was like one of the names of the games or comic books. Like I can't take credit for that, but like I know that one was like very much like, oh, we knew what we wanted, but we didn't put it out there properly the first time.
But in an attempt to kind of bring the franchise kind of back to its roots, in 2010, they released a movie called Predators, which I was watching and I was just enthralled. I was like, this movie is great. Things are really, really working for me here, because it just starts off with like zero explanation. You're just on the ground with these humans trying to figure out, why the hell did we wake up in the middle of the air attached to a parachute? We're in this mysterious jungle. There's other people surrounded by me. Where are we? What happened? The last thing I remember, I was like driving to work, or I was in the jungles in like Borneo or something like that, and now I'm in this like totally alien world. And they slowly figure out, oh, this is a game preserve, we're being hunted by predators. They introduce predator dogs, which I don't know if predator dogs have been introduced before, so that could have been a new entry.
Video games, I think, in comics, but this is the first movie version of them.
Yeah, and they looked great. There was some practical effects too in this film, and the thing they really looked out with Predators 2010 was the cast. I feel like they got to some of these people before they got either super popular or they just aged still very well. You know, you got Danny Trejo. You have
Mahershala Ali's in that.
Mahershala, that was the biggest surprise. Topher Grace. It's all coming back to me now. You have I can't remember her name.
Well, Adrian Brody. He was big. I think he was it. But then is it Alice Braga from?
Is she the one from the Fast franchise? Is that the one I'm thinking of?
Yeah, Suicide Squad. She was in the newest Suicide Squad.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's the one I'm thinking of. So she's in there. And then there's this other guy who's like a Yakuza, and later in the movie he has like a literal like samurai sword showdown with a predator and like this big like open grass field. It's like so cool. Like they just did a really good job of knowing what the audience wanted. And then they don't kind of lead it up to like a big like, it's not necessarily an ending you expect, but it's like an ending that makes sense. And then there's like a wild like Lawrence Fishburne in the middle of the movie that you don't expect either.
Yeah, Lawrence Fishburne's there, and you're forgetting national treasure Walton Goggins before he was huge.
Oh yeah,
is in this movie.
He plays like a prisoner, convict, and rapist. So he has some like really like weird kind of just disgusting lines. Then you're just like, oh no, I'm looking forward to this guy getting like impaled by a predator.
What I remember most about him was like, I think again, if you haven't watched the movie, go watch it. Again, it's a 12-year-old movie. I believe like he had like they tried to give him like a character arc, right, where he tried to become like the I'm gonna sacrifice myself kind of thing at the end of it. But like he did have one of the most gruesome deaths in the movie. Like that's the one he just ripped his head out in the spine. Like, okay, great.
Overall, Predators is great. This is like a really, really good movie that I could honestly recommend to anybody kind of in this zone of aliens and Predator kind of franchise. Still need to finish AVP 2, like I was saying, and then as I was telling Chris, it's a little bit harder to find to stream, but also the 2018 version of The Predator, which feels it's in the same vein as Predators, which I know this is a lot hard to keep track of with all of these S's, possessive or sequels.
Just articles, there's the Predator or The Predator.
Yeah, The Predator, I would say, is yet another attempt to reignite the franchise, which didn't really work, directed by Shane Black. And then I would say Prey is also in that same vein of, like, let's reignite the franchise by bringing it back to its roots. So hopefully, stay tuned, stay subscribed, come back in the next couple of weeks, and maybe I will have finished these other Predator movies. But I don't know, Chris. This feels like a long way of telling the audience out there that we don't have a whole lot of news.
No,
this
we don't
week,
have a lot of news.
That's why I talked about Alien vs. Predator for like 15 minutes.
Before we get into that, I do want to say, I told Mike this as he was putting this. I saw Alien vs. Predator, Aliens vs. Predator Requiem, and Predators in theater. I've seen all three of these movies. I paid money to watch them when they came out because it's like that perfect time. And when we were growing up, I was like 2004. I'm like, yep, Aliens, perfect. Predators, even better. Put me in here because I don't know what a good movie is. I just want action and gore, and then I'm gonna get
now that. Now that I think about it, I don't exactly want to age ourselves to our audience, but these movies would have been coming out at the perfect time where we could get into rated R movies without parents. It would have been like just the right age. So it's like, hell yeah, I'm gonna go see this. I can go. I don't need permission. I'll go watch this. It is fun watching Aliens vs Predator Requiem, because like the whole reveal that they keep teasing so far is that like there is an alien out there that's like half Predator DNA.
The
it has, like, mandibles and everything. Yeah, so like I'm waiting to see it. They're like intentionally bathing it in shadow. I'm just like, show me this goddamn alien already. So I have to wait.
You were not the only person to think that movie is like the darkest film ever made. They're like we're lighting the movie by candles, right? So buckle up. But
that's exactly what.
But I think it has some of the better like kill scenes compared to the previous one, because AVP's in an iceberg, like, right? It's just a scientist team accidentally finding the stuff. This one is like, okay, like we're going full action out on this. Like I believe there's like have they got to the school yet in that movie?
I just finished the part with the school, the pool.
Yeah, there's like the big blades coming down the hallways and stuff like that. So
maybe.
If not, it's fine.
Maybe they go back to
the
school.
Either way, you're gonna enjoy yourself there. I believe that movie also starts with them just straight up killing a kid. Like they're like, we're gonna this kid got a face hugger. Scene 1, right? Like, isn't that what that was?
It's just like, all right. Yeah, and it's interesting too because the Predator on Earth is on a different mission. Yeah. Like they kind of set it up to the phase of like, oh, I got to go clean this mess up. We can't have like a Predator alien hybrid like running around. That would kind of be like bad for our image. Yeah. So it's funny because like this Predator is like, he's like on work. It's like he's on the clock and he's just like, God damn it. Yeah. This alien keeps running away. I keep shooting with my cannons. They're all over the place. There's a goddamn infestation. I just want to go back home and like sip my tea. And to add insult to injury, he like shoots up the like electrical plant. And it's just like, it's already too dark and you blew up the electrical grid. Now I'm never going to see anything when this movie finishes. So tune in next week. I think I'll have it finished.
It's fun. I enjoy these movies. They're not good movies, but they are enjoyable to pick at, and then also think like someone was thought this was a great idea back then to make a movie out of. So, all right, shifting gears, let's jump into this. First and foremost, me and Mike, we know that Andor is out on Disney Plus. There are 3 episodes. We have both only been able to watch the first episode so far. So if you've had a chance to watch Andor, don't tell us about episodes 2 and 3. We were able to catch one. I believe it was like 30 to 40 minutes, Mike. It's not a full hour, but it's longer than a half-hour episode, if I'm right. But we're gonna talk about this. Honestly, I get Blade Runner vibes. This entire first episode, I was like, this feels like Blade Runner, right? Like it's like an 80s kind of like, there's the 80s like kind of, I wouldn't say trance, but like that retro music, right? The retro wave is kind of going on. It's raining and wet for most of the scene. It's like neo-futuristic on that planet they were on, or he's on when it opens. I'm like, this feels like Blade Runner, and that's not a bad thing. I don't think the whole show will feel like Blade Runner, but like it definitely kind of sets the tone, hopefully for the rest of the series. But I really did not find myself, I guess, upset. It didn't offend me to watch episode 1 of Andor, much like we had anticipated over the past several years of watching this. Waiting for this.
It's just so funny. Like Chris and I, off the mic, were saying earlier that whether for good or for worse, like Andor is probably the most niche idea for a Star Wars story, right? I was telling him that like I had to show my wife a recap of Rogue One because we hadn't really seen it much since it was out in theaters, because I couldn't just explain to her like, oh, we're about to watch a show about Cassian Andor, because it's just like a blank stare of like, right. Who's that? Are they related to a Skywalker or Obi-Wan? Like, no, as far as we know, no. So we watched a little recap video on YouTube, and then after that, she was like, okay, I remember that movie. So we watched the first episode, and she's like, I don't know who any of these people are. I don't know anything that's happening.
Yeah, and I told Mike, I'm like, she's not alone. I feel like we're like, I don't know who any of these people are except Cassian Andor.
So but so that's just a way to say like, don't be surprised. Like if you do like this show, maybe some of your friends aren't into it. Maybe you can't get your parents in on watching this one. I would say you have to have a somewhat interest in Star Wars, or just like have nothing else really going on, like nothing else is streaming right now. Everyone's talking about this new Star Wars show, I'll give it a look.
Well, I think it's I think, you know, it's not a heavy commitment, and I don't think you're going to be emotionally drained after watching this, right? Like a lot of other shows, like you have to pay a lot of attention.
Man, I don't know, man. Emotionally drained. I guess this will go into like I think in a positive way. Like he like shoots a dude point blank in the face in like the opening of the show, and I was like, I was on board after that. I was just like, okay, we have not gotten this dark on like a Star Wars property in a while.
Well, he did actually. When we first met Andor, he killed that dude. He shot him cold dead in Rogue One when we first met him, which is kind of like a throwback to this. And I think I also told Mike this, you know, if you haven't watched Rogue One in a while, you don't need to watch Rogue One to get into the show. Maybe to know who the character is, possibly, but like, I was very afraid the show was going to start with the end of Rogue One and be like, and this is the story of Cassian Andor and how he saved, you know, or saved the rebellion or started the rebellion. But it doesn't. It just cuts into a story and you're like, okay, this is great. I did have to stop and look up to make sure I wasn't missing subtitles for this show, because they are on this planet. What is the name of that the planet they're on?
They're called like Canaries or something.
Yeah, Canarian.
Like
It's Canarian. It's Canaria. It's with a Kaneria. I looked it up, and apparently, the planet Canaria is so off the grid, like they don't speak Basic, which is like the common language in Star Wars. So like literally, there's no translation for anything they're doing. So I was like, I had to stop and put on subtitles to make sure I was like, am I missing this? Am I stupid? So I'm waiting. I'm looking.
Do the subtitles say anything?
No, not. Well, they're like, you know, scorn, okay. like tone, like of what they're saying, right?
It's just like, oh, okay, gotcha.
Not word for word. So I'm like very interested to see the explanation kind of comes through a little bit more down the road. But I was like, that's a bold choice on a show, kind of right out the gate, especially as much as they talked.
Yeah, so far, like, I'm digging the vibes. The cinematography looks really good. I wanted to watch the next one right away, but you know, we were this is the unintended consequence, right, of releasing 3 episodes all at once, of just like, you know, if you only have time to fit one in, now you got to look for the next one. Or normally I feel like I could just wait another week to watch the next one, but now if I wait too long, I'll be 3 episodes behind again. So, but you know, it was strategic, right? You know, we need to get all of these out there so people get hooked on, like we said, a very niche idea of a Star Wars show. And, you know, to be, you know, at least fair and critical in a way, episode 1 just kind of ends, right? There's not much of a cliffhanger. They don't really, in episode 1, they don't super traditionally like set up the goal for the protagonist for the season. Like, right now, after the first episode, Cassian is just trying to lay low. That's kind of like the main motivation he has right now. And then there's like a smaller kind of lower subplot that's pulling him throughout his life of trying to find his sister. And it seems like that's just something that's kind of always happening. Yeah. So yeah, that's probably why I was so motivated to watch the second episode, because I felt like I hadn't really finished the first episode. But so far, like, so good. Like, it feels very much like Rogue One.
So I'm gonna give 2 things here. One is a notice, and one's a theory. Notice number 1 is these are real sets, and by God, it feels like a real sets. Right?
Oh, yeah, it's great. It's kind of nice knowing that, like, oh, yeah, maybe it's not a good idea to make the majority of your television show in the volume. Yeah. Like, it's good sometimes, not all the times.
Yeah. Like the raining, the I guess the town he's kind of in, right, where he's working, like, everything. Like, I can see them figuring out how to film this with the camera. Like, they got to hide behind, like, a corner of a building, right? They're not just, everything's not out in the open and clear. It was very fun to see them film this in real locations, or, you know, pre-built sets. So I was like, this is awesome. Really absolutely love this. 2, I think his droid becomes K2SO. Mike, what do you think about that? His little trash can droid. Like, they're going to take his sassiness and put it in a big body.
Whether what it is, I love the droid, though. Like, I love the construction of it, because it doesn't quite look humanoid, so it's in kind of like that R2 realm, but it can still emote because it has like that spinning inside, and it kind of like a telescope. Yeah. But yeah, I could see it, because the first thing you learn about the droid is that it's kind of malfunctioning, and it's not working super well, and sometimes it'll forget to keep Cassian's secrets, which I just think is really funny. So yeah, I could see it like going going onto a floppy disk or something, and then being put in one of those Imperial droids.
It's kind of got like an attitude to it, kind of like K2SO does, right? Like a sarcasm kind of to it, which I think that's kind of what's leading me to that bit a little bit. I could be wrong, but I thought that was a very, very interesting. For me, I was like, I could totally see him being like K2SO, because he really is. He just a red Wally, because he looks like a red Wally in this little Star Wars universe. Yeah. So overall, I think it's it's a fine show. I think maybe after we get through the three that came out, I could probably, like you said, make a pitch better. Like, oh, this is a political thriller. This is a spy show, right? If you want to see Star Wars or a spy show in the Star Wars realm, this is what you want. I might be the way to pitch it later, but I don't know yet. So.
I think so far we can both just say so far so good.
So far,
we'll keep on.
We set our bar pretty low, our mental bar pretty low on this one. So
that is true.
That anything above that, I'm happy. We'll take it as a win. In other Star Wars news, sadly, James Earl Jones has retired from the Darth Vader voice acting role. With that, though, he has given explicit permission to use archival recordings of himself and AI to recreate his voice going forward. So he's totally on board with this, and apparently the people at Star Wars have said he has worked with that AI company for feedback and to design the sound of like his voice being used, right? So we kind of talked about him possibly using AI for Kenobi, right? So it sounds like he actually recorded Kenobi, but that was like the last time he was like going to kind of do that role a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like this is kind of like one of the first stepping stones, right, for artificially keeping a kind of character alive. Mm-hmm. James Earl Jones is getting up there in years. He's, tackling Mufasa again for that Mufasa film coming out. Yeah. So I would imagine he announces his retirement from Mufasa, right around the time that movie releases, because that would be aptly timed. But I feel like with Darth Vader, you luck out a little bit to where like it is James Earl Jones's voice, but it's also kind of always going through like that filter,
modulation.
Right?
Yeah.
So they're lucky that that's probably extra easy to use artificial intelligence with. You put it through that filter, and even if it kind of sounds a little weird, it comes out filtered and it sounds.
And Darth Vader has a 45-year presence, right? So it's not like it's like, oh, this is the first. We got to think about it now in the 11th hour. No, they've been trying to probably do this for years, or create it. I remember that you used to buy a costume in the early 2000s that kind of modulated your voice to sound like him a little bit. So
I mean, technically, since they've given us more Anakin throughout the years, James Earl Jones is actually more factually the voice of the modulator of the suit, because it is supposed to be Hayden Christensen voice underneath, which is just it's funny. Someone should do like some science of just like what kind of pitches and filters do you have to add on to Anakin Skywalker to make it sound like Darth Vader, and then just throw that Sam on other people. Be like, oh, I want to know what I would sound like if I was in the Vader suit.
I tell you what, I don't even think that. I think you go more into the Clone Wars and give it to Matt Lanter, right? He voiced Anakin for 9 seasons and more. Oh, yeah. So I say like, oh yeah, don't pay Hayden Christensen, pay Matt Lanter and give him some voice work to do. So, but. Yeah, I mean, this is sad, yes, but, good that he was able to retire in his own terms, give the blessing, and help design that technology going forward. How much more Darth Vader can we hear, though, Mike? That's my question. Like, are we peak Vader? Like, is it just for, like, maybe Disney World stuff? Like,
I mean,
hopefully it's not for movies, right?
Has he already recorded lines, for season 2 of Obi-Wan? Because I would assume Vader's in that, right?
If they do a season 2, but... probably most likely. I'd assume they probably haven't written it yet, so
we shall see. Now, before we move on to our next topic, you can help remind me of the timeline. Theoretically, Obi-Wan Kenobi that we have just seen within the Obi-Wan TV show could show up in the Andor show, right? They are in the same timeline. So
very close to it, yes. So you saw at the beginning of Andor the letters 5 BBY. And do you know what BBY means in Star Wars?
I was going off of vibes, and I got the feeling that this was 5 years after like Order 66, whatever does that seem about right?
No.
I don't know if Order 66 is the tent pole, but
you're going. It's the wrong direction. So 5 is before the Battle of Yavin. So episode 1 or episode 3 or 4, A New Hope is year 0 in Star Wars. So the prequels are have been post dated X amount of years before the Battle of Yavin, like as archival stuff. So it is taking place 5 years before A New Hope, if you will.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Obi-Wan is like 10 years before the Battle of Yavin, I guess, based on Luke Skywalker's
okay,
age.
yeah, so so they could, they totally could run into each other.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, with the way Kenobi ended, right, with him being probably going out and being a little more active out in the universe with this rebellion, I could totally see him showing up in end of the season, kind of get hype back for the finale kind of deal. So we might get that. We might get a lightsaber before it's all said and done, Mike. You don't know yet. Ahsoka is also out there in the world, right? So maybe she shows up because there's only if 5 years for Battle, you have like maybe 15 years pre Ahsoka TV show. So yeah, well, I'll go with I did this for you, Mike. I did the research. I didn't put it in here, but there is a timeline Star Wars released late last year when they did the announcements of all their shows coming out. So I'm going to give you that timeline, Mike, so you can see where all this lives when it's all said and done. That way you know your Star Wars timeline. All right, shifting gears. Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, the next MCU movie coming up in November. So that means marketing is about to ramp up, right? We get this. Usually the beginning of marketing season is an Empire magazine cover. And I believe Empire is monthly, correct? Because it says November 2022. So November 2022 usually drops around October 1st. So we get our first magazine cover of Empire with all these blues, pinks, Queen Ramonda, Shuri, and Namor in his Atlantean headdress, which is very heavily based on South American culture, right? Based on this.
Yeah, that garb looks cool as hell. Yeah. It's awesome. It's like a giant headpiece. There's like tons of intricate pieces on there. Like you can tell just like looking at the costuming, like that this is an ancient race that has like been around for a while. Lots of traditions, I'm sure, very similar to Wakanda. And I'm sure that they will butt heads for sure. But yeah, it looks great. It's a really cool looking magazine cover. We have it partially featured on our featured image for the podcast this week. But also we got the link in our show notes too. You can head on over to Empire and look at that cover.
Yeah, check that out. Let us know what you think. I think it's simple, and that's what it is. The real news comes through, and there's leaked D23 footage from the Wakanda Forever panel, right, that they had at D23. And did you get a chance to watch that, Mike, at all? That link?
Refresh my memory of what it looked like. I don't entirely remember.
That's fine. There are no spoilers for Black Panther, but it starts with Queen Ramonda going into a United Nations meeting, and the France and another country are specifically like, look, why is Wakanda not sharing vibranium with us? And then it's intercut with footage of like French soldiers trying to take over a Wakanda research vessel, and then they open it up, and out comes the Dora Milaje, and then you come to find out that Queen Ramonda's like the Black Panther's dad, but I'm here to protect my country at all costs. And then they march in those soldiers that they captured on that boat into the UN, and she's like, the time for playing nice is over, kind of deal. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. So it really kind of shows how I don't know the actress name off the top of my head. I'm going to pull this up here because I didn't do it right. Angela Bassett. Angela Bassett is probably going to be a more prominent role in this movie than I think we initially probably thought she might be, right?
Yeah. Well, I think that's probably the strategic move for this movie, right? Since the passing of Chadwick, where you're going to have to elevate all the characters around them to kind of fill the gap. And also, it makes a lot of sense. All of these characters would be extraordinarily affected by the loss of T'Challa. So, yeah, we'll be seeing a lot more of the family. But I think the thing that you did send me earlier this week was kind of more leaked box art for the
that too.
The Legends action figure series. So we're getting like pretty much full on views of what this Ironheart armor is going to look like, and it looks like a robot, like straight out of an anime.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's intentional, and I could see it going either way. I think it looks cool, but I don't really get Iron Man, Tony Stark vibes out of this really at all. And maybe that is the point. Maybe this is supposed to feel more like Wakandan tech, and then when we move into the Ironheart show, we start to see more kind of hints of Mark armors, in there.
And we saw that one on.
It looks good.
Well, I was gonna say we saw that one on set that looks entirely more like an Iron Man Warmonger armor than this one. Like this looks streamlined. Like Shuri made this, and it's like you can borrow my suit for my closet kind of deal, rather than she made it with scraps and then the Harlem.
Yeah, you're gonna see the scene of like, the third act battle's coming up, and it's just like, I just happened to make this for you, and it spins around, and it's like this beautiful looking armor. But I would imagine maybe we start to see some sort of glimpse of this armor in maybe the next Wakanda trailer. Maybe not a full on view of it, but at least the face mask.
It's prominent in all the action figures and all the toys that are hitting stores today. So they can't hold it back forever, right? They're not going to hold it until the end and save it for launch. I do think we're going to see a bigger battle scene in the next one, the next trailer, which hopefully is right around the corner, because then we can start buying tickets for this. So we'll cross our fingers, hit that November theater date. The other thing, and I'm pretty sure, I don't know if I sent this to you yet or not, Mike, was Loki Season 2 had some leaked footage from D23. Did I send that to you? I can't remember. Because...
No, I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Yes.
No.
It's, I will send it to you later, but it is very much Loki. Tom Hiddleston saying he's being pulled through time, and you get to see him kind of like, looks like he's kind of possessed as he's like kind of going through like different scenes, like, right? Like kind of like he's like moving around, like kind of like uncontrolling his body, right? It's kind of flinging around a little bit. So I'm very interested to see what this is, how this plays out. I've seen a lot of, articles showing, on scenes pictures. I don't want to watch it. I'd rather see the official thing, but it did say next summer this is coming out, Mike. So we're going to be getting Loki Season 2 in 2020, summer 2023 for sure, man. So I'm very, very excited to watch this.
Chris, I'm low-key excited.
Yeah. I don't think you're low-key excited. I think you're high-key excited. Right? Because Loki Season 1, I mean, as much as we didn't know it at the time, that is I think, to me, the step one of this multiverse saga, right? Like, literally, the only movie to show us a multiverse, or the only show to show us a multiverse out the gate was this one.
Still waiting for a little bit of follow-up on that, right? Yep. They kind of pitched that first season of just like, this is earth-shattering, and then nobody's really talked about it since. No one's like really uttered the word TVA outside of that show, or really anything. So I'd love to see it incorporated a little bit more.
Yeah, well, we had Spider-Man break his universe. What If? You had Doctor Strange. We do know Kang. We got He Who Remains, played by, can't think of the actor's name.
Jonathan Majors.
Jonathan Majors, yes. Not Jonathan Minors. That's a different character. But
Majors, high key, low key.
Jonathan Majors getting cast as Kang, getting a movie called The Kang Dynasty. We probably felt it at the time, but we didn't know how impactful that would be. So Season 2, really is gonna have a really, really good follow up there. So we'll play that by ear. I don't have any footage from Daredevil Born Again, Mike, because it hasn't filmed, because it's 18 goddamn episodes for a show. It's going to be filmed for a long time, but apparently they were going to have Jessica Jones in this as a someone Daredevil was looking for, but apparently due to the scheduling conflict of the actress who played Jessica Jones, they will be using the Punisher instead, with John Bernthal, bringing him into the show. I think that's fine.
It's always how it is, right? It's always scheduling conflicts is what it comes down to, but that's cool though, right? Get to bring in these other Netflix characters. It seems like they're gonna at least attempt to go for a full sweep, right? If this is true, we're getting confirmation that they're totally down with bringing back Jessica Jones, totally down with bringing back the Punisher. Luke Cage would probably be the only lingering one left, because I don't know if we're going to be seeing Finn Jones again as Iron Fist. They could do it if they kind of do it knowingly, right? Bring them back in a way that we acknowledge that nobody was really into it.
Well, they did that. That's exactly what they did with Iron Man 3, right? Not the Mandalorian, the Mandarin, right? Everyone was like, we didn't like this twist. A lot of people didn't care for it. They want the real Mandarin. They did the one shot, brought him back, acknowledging this guy was a fraud, and nobody liked it. So yeah, I think there's definitely a possibility if they want to do it. I wouldn't care if Luke Cage or Iron Fist don't come into this, right? I think, to me, that's fine. But, and correct me if I'm wrong, did Jessica Jones, Daredevil, and the Punisher all appeared in Daredevil the show, right? They all were in his series as well.
As far as I know, I don't believe John Bernthal's the Punisher. Wait, no,
he was in season 2 of Daredevil.
Like a lawyer.
Yeah,
there was like a lawyer whole scene there. Yeah, I think they've all cross-pollinated a little bit.
Yeah, I thought they were all in Daredevil at least. I didn't remember. I know Luke Cage was in Jessica Jones, Iron Fist.
Well, I mean, they were all in the Defenders.
Right, but I'm just saying like the standalone.
So.
I'm just saying the standalone Daredevil show. Maybe they were all in there, but either way, this is fine. John Bernthal's a Punisher. I think he did a great job at it. Right? We don't need to recast it. So if he's down to do that, I know he's doing a new show right now. If he's got time for it, bring him in. Let's get him in there. I chunked these two together, Mike. Moon Knight, Miss Marvel, 2 Disney Plus shows this year. Both shows are rumored to get second seasons on Disney Plus. Don't think this was really a surprise. I do know the directors of Miss Marvel, the showrunners, were directing Batgirl. That got canceled, so I feel like maybe they got some extra time to move this up the plate a little bit. But
yeah, well, I think Moon Knight might still be on rumor status, but I think the showrunner for Miss Marvel tweeted that there was going to be a second season.
I think it was both shows had it maybe. Tweeted like, who's ready for season 2? I think is maybe what they both used, kind of thing. So it could be rumored like, they're hyping it, but I think they're both going to get a second season, possibly in that 2024 window, right? That we have like 8 windows to do, but it's fine.
I mean, I wasn't a fan of Moon Knight, but I know a lot of people out there were. So second seasons for those. I'm not surprised, but it's not unworth having the conversation, right? Because WandaVision probably not getting a second season because it wasn't set up to be like that. Falcon and the Winter Soldier probably not going to happen.
Spun off into 2 movies.
Characters have spun off into other things, exactly. So it's not always guaranteed, right, that these Marvel shows get second seasons because they're not always structured like that.
Loki,
it's always worth having the conversation.
Yeah, Loki could have done that. What If is getting a second season, but I don't really count that as canonical, right? That's kind of it can do anything at once. What else do we have? I'm missing one. She-Hulk's still going on. Did we have another live action? Hawkeye.
You're thinking of Hawkeye.
Yeah, Hawkeye hasn't had any any announcements actually come out of that one yet, and I feel it was probably the most level of most of the shows last year. It's like, this is consistent. So we'll see. But on the other side, maybe you get surprise announcements that are not really surprises because everyone knows about them. Werewolf by Night. Coming out, and they have confirmed, or someone possibly asterisk confirmed, 52-minute and 37-second runtime.
Yes, I'm happy to hear that because there was a part of me that was a little worried of like, could this just be like a 20-minute thing, right? Like the literal definition of like a short film, which I think usually kind of clocks in around like 15-20 minutes, something like that. So I was like, oh, maybe that's what it's going to be, and that's why they were able to kind of like make it and put it out so quickly. Yep. But yeah, glad to see kind of like close to an hour here.
And I feel you can get a lot done in that 45-minute range without credits, right? Even if it's 52 minutes with credits. Like, I feel like some of the She-Hulk episodes or like WandaVision were like too short. You're like, I want more. Like, you can't do this in 20 minutes. The other part of this was on the Disney Plus app. If you check it, it's now marked as horror instead of comedy. So they've updated it to be marked as horror rather than comedy, which I think comedy might have been a placeholder until they got it rated properly.
I know everyone's Disney Plus is a little different compared to what country they're in, but I was surprised to even hear that there was a horror category. They're like, we got to make a new tag because we're adding something that's technically horror on the platform for the first time.
Does Hocus Pocus count as horror? Like by adjacent because it's Halloween adjacent. Like
I feel like if you're trying to pitch that, you'd probably call it like spooky, because that's like safe for kids. But the sub-hour runtime actually could be really effective, because if they're kind of leaning into like this cheesy kind of grindhouse look for the film, after an hour, that could kind of weigh on you a little bit, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because it's like, oh, how long do I want to indulge, right, in something like this? So yeah, I think this runtime sounds like the sweet spot.
Yeah. I did pull up Hocus Pocus as family, comedy, and fantasy. So no, it's completely wrong. So the best part of having Disney Plus on like a browser, you can just whip this stuff up right away and check it. Moving along, Fantastic Four, we have confirmation, I believe, that Jeff Kaplan and In Springer have been tapped. This duo has been tapped to write the film, and I believe they've actually been confirmed for a while, but like nobody really just was paying attention to this, or they've been hired and nobody knew until this week. So they, I believe I sent that over to you earlier this week about how some of them, like Rick and Morty maybe, or that might be a King Dynasty, but these they I guess they're like been selling a lot of spec scripts in Hollywood, Mike, and you usually know if you're selling a lot of spec scripts, you're probably a hot commodity in Hollywood, so they snagged them up pretty good for that. So Matt Shackman is still Shackman, whatever his name is still directing it. So, when do you think we're going to start getting casting announcements, Mike? Next year?
Yeah, I mean, we were kind of hoping we would get some at like Comic-Con or D23, right? And that never ended up happening, which is, unfortunate. But yeah, this is a good get for them. Writing careers in Hollywood are always so interesting, right? Because like I'm looking at these two writers, I'm looking at their writing history, and they don't really have anything that anyone would like look at and go, oh yeah, no, they should be writing the Fantastic Four movie, right? So this is just like which is a good thing, because this feels like a strategic hire in a way of like, well, let's not just, because I feel like that's what happened a lot with, what's his name, who wrote pretty much all of those DC movies, starting with, was it Goyer?
Yeah, David S. Goyer, yeah.
Yeah, that guy kept getting work because, like, oh, that's the superhero, dark, gritty superhero guy. Just hire him to write your movie because he wrote other ones and he can do it. So this duo kind of seems more like, since they don't have that much of a catalog of things that I've ever heard of, it's like, oh, no, we've analyzed it and they are good writers, so they'll write us a good movie. So I would take that as a positive.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, one of the things that keeps coming up is their upcoming movie Disaster Wedding, which has the director of Palm Springs attached to it, which I think Palm Springs was like a sleeper hit last year, right, when it came out. So to me, I was like, yeah, this is great. This is people who know how to make a good movie and aren't just like, they're not too big for their britches, if you will. Like, right, they're not coming in like, oh, I'm gonna pull my weight around here and do what I want to do, even if it's a bad movie. So I agree with you entirely. Like that, glad they got someone who can do good writing and nail this, and probably works really good with the director as well. Moving on, I don't have any other information on this, Mike, but a Iron Man single-player video game from Marvel Games and Motive Studio has been announced this week. So, have you played the other two Iron Man games, the ones based on the movies, at all?
No, I have not.
They are shit. Like, I'm a video games apologist, Mike, and I told you this, and that sucks. Those suck so hard for Iron Man games. You'd be like, oh, it can't be that bad to do it, but no, it is awful, and I hate it, and I don't wish those games on like my worst enemies at all. Motive is a company under EA. They worked on Battlefront 2. Subparts of it, DICE was the main bit, but they also did Star Wars Squadrons, which did you play that? I know it was a PlayStation free game, the one where you pilot the ships around.
No, heard of it, haven't played it.
Fantastic. I love using them with the throttle and joystick. And they're also doing the Dead Space remaster, the remake of the original game. So very excited for this. I did not expect them to announce an Iron Man game literally 2 weeks after a Captain America game, and Black Panther game, but they did confirm that none of these games are related. There is no MCU Marvel video game verse. They are all standalone games to tell their own stories.
That'd be That'd be so cool. I mean, for me, the gold standard obviously is the Insomniac Spider-Man games.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those are the best at making you feel like you are that specific hero, right? And I think that lends favor to like the web swinging, right? It's very unique traversal mechanic. And, you know, Iron Man, not necessarily a unique mechanic, but I would love to see them do it, you know, correctly and have it be fun. What probably the other gold standard on the other end would be more like an Arkham game, right? Yeah. You know, more of a brawler. And but Iron Man doesn't seem like a brawler to me.
Arkham kind of fits into Spider-Man's fighting mechanics, right? Like the fighting Spider-Man does is very similar to Arkham with like the predictive misses and swings. You know, when you're fighting. To me, again, I know you haven't finished this yet, but I think, you know, recently we've got into games that have good gameplay but also good story, like Guardians of the Galaxy, right? Like, you know, it's got a great story. It's single player. You know, a lot of people don't like the Avengers game. It's fine. It's not really made for single players, which sucks. Like, you have to have people to play it to kind of enjoy it. So if you want a good single player game, I think, you know, they've come a long way with these games.
I think a really cool like Iron Man video game mechanic would be if he had destructible armor in a way, right? So I don't know if they would do like nanobots, you know, or if it would just be like more of a mechanical armor. But it'd be cool if he was fighting, right? You know, if he takes too much damage to like an extremity in a way, like that armor starts to fall off, and then, you know, who knows? He runs around and picking up some sort of like power up or a tchotchke, whatever like makes the most sense. Or, you know, Friday.
I think you call in some backup from space, right? Like you have to like stop.
And you have some like new stuff, like new gauntlets fly onto you to repair. So I think that would be cool. And then you could reveal like the human underneath it, you know, and like there have been other games like that. Like the most basic one is like, what is it? Ghosts and Goblins, that really hard one where you're that knight, and if you get hit once, you're automatically in your underwear or something like that. So that could be fun.
Yeah.
But yeah. Hopefully that it's being treated more premium, because we do know Insomniac, they're working on Wolverine, right?
Yeah, the Spider-Man 2 and Wolverine. That one Amy Hennig who did Uncharted is working on the Captain America Black Panther games. Motive is just on this again. My experience with them are Squadrons, which is a really good story, and then Dead Space, which is one of my I don't like horror games, but I really like Dead Space for that. And then there's another one, I'm missing it. Whatever, I think of it later. But yeah, I mean, I think there's some really good single player games coming out of this. And really, what I hate about the other one was like the flying mechanics. Like, you think flying mechanics would be easy for a character? No. Like, that's the part they mess up the most. And I think if you're in an Iron Man suit, you gotta have the ability to fly, right? Like a little bit and do that. And I think you're gonna have to have that. You know, obviously you can upgrade your armors, pick different suits for different abilities. You know, I think that'll be interesting. But I need to see what the Warzone, like, who's he fighting? Is it terrorists? Is it some other robots? What's he gonna be doing, and how does that fit into this? So very excited. We'll keep you guys posted as more comes out. The other side of that, if you like Goldeneye from 1990s, they finally announced a remastered, or it's an HD version of the same game from the 1996 movie coming to Nintendo Switch and Xbox. So I'm sorry for PlayStation owners, but you know, I think this is fantastic if you like playing Goldeneye right the whole way through.
Are they gonna nerf Oddjob? That's what it always was. Everyone's picking Oddjob because he's too short. He's harder to shoot. How do they nerf it? Yeah. How do they nerf a character that's shorter?
As far as I can tell, it's the same game with a high shield. What I want is paintball mode. I miss paintball mode, right, where you could turn on paintball mode instead of bullet holes. It would be paintball. So, yeah, I'm very excited to kind of go back and revisit that with all those things. All right, so I'm going to answer your questions, Mike, because you had a question about this next topic. Black Adam, a new 1-minute TV spot / called what's it called? I think Legacy spot was dropped this week. Within 24 hours, it was taken down and replaced with a different version. I wouldn't bring this trailer up normally, except the original included literally 15 frames of an explosion from the theatrical version of Justice League. And if you look close enough, you can see Steppenwolf's helmet. And enough stupid-ass Snyder fans were on the internet to have them take this down and replace it with a new shot that shows Black Adam's lightning in a cloud rather than a red explosion.
Oh
This is the worst thing I've ever fucking heard, and we do this show every week, Mike. This is out of control. So
yeah, it's funny because if you take yourself out of like this whole Snyderverse nonsense, you are looking at a movie studio that's doing its best to promote a movie, but doing what every movie studio does is where you try to tie it to previous things that the audience likes. It's the same like when you're watching like a trailer for like a new Pixar movie, right? And at the beginning they always say, from the creators of Toy Story and The Incredibles comes, so-and-so. So they're kind of doing that with this trailer where it starts off with shots of, you see Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, you see Jason Momoa as Aquaman. You only see Superman's costume. Yeah. You don't see the face at all, so you can tell that is intentional. And then you only see a Batarang. Yep. And even though it's definitely Batfleck's Batarang, right? Yeah. You don't see the character, so you can see it. Like, you don't have to be like a super nerd to go like, oh, they're intentionally leaving these actors out because they don't know what the future holds for them.
Nobody. Even me, I don't give two shits about 15 frames of an explosion in a movie. Right? It could be an explosion from The Matrix, for all I give a shit. I didn't notice it. Nobody else was associating an orange screen with the Joss Whedon's Justice League, rather than Zack's. And they didn't even replace it with Justice League. They just literally replaced it with more Black Adam footage. And it's just one of those things where like the internet crybabies over the Justice League stuff just need to. I was hoping The Rock would hold his own ground, but like it doesn't matter. Like, just watch my movie. But like he posted and said corrected with like the fist bump emoji. I'm like, oh, this is not making you want to see Black Adam now. Like, I really am unthrilled that they're encouraging this vocal / destructive minority on the internet over this stuff.
Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. Well, like we said at the top of the show with Grand Theft Auto 6, just keep a level head.
Yeah. Doesn't matter.
Just doing their best. Everyone's doing their best.
It's a movie at the end of the day. It's just a movie. It doesn't matter what it belongs to or who it connects to. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Anyway, in this, Amanda Waller is the connecting tissue. She has voiceovers mentioning all the other superheroes. It's got Harley Quinn, right, from her solo movie in there. Mm-hmm. So definitely they're trying to show, like, from the studio that brought you these other movies. I think Eternals was like the last Marvel movie that did that right, because then they show like, here's all these other things that happened, but this is the history of the Marvel universe kind of thing. So
yeah,
if I remember right. So yeah. Anyway, you can check out that corrected one in the link. You can find the original one on YouTube as well to literally see the 15 frames if you missed it. We have talked about trying to go see Avatar in theaters, Mike. We want to see this new 4K updated version. It is now in theaters. I did look it up. There's like 3 showings a day at my local theater. What I didn't know is that the release now includes a new post-credit scene preview for the upcoming Avatar 2 The Way of Water movie. So if you say after the credits, you can watch that. However, in a twist of events, various ending scenes are being shown depending on which theater you're in. So
that's fun. I actually like that. I think some people might be annoyed that like, oh, why didn't I get that one? But I think that's fun.
I think
it's just a fun little gimmick.
The part about this that I think is, it's not weird. I guess it makes sense. Is I think it is on what version you're watching. The 3D version has a different one. The high frame rate, 48 frames per second, has a different one. The regular IMAX has a different one. I think that's how they're doing it. I'm waiting for these to all hit YouTube, like people just videotaping them, so I can see what they are.
I mean, the re-release didn't do too bad. $30 million, I think, is what the box office is saying for it coming back. This is like an older movie just coming back. They usually don't make this much money, and it's almost like a proof of concept, right? Of like, if the studio was worried at all, like, are people still going to care about Avatar? People showed up. They wanted to see it again, so it worked. So whoever idea it was at the studio to be like, hey, I think we should re-release that movie. If it was somebody on Cameron's team, if it was somebody at Fox/Disney or 20th Century, whatever it's called now, good for you. Your plan worked. You're getting a promotion.
Yeah. And they released this like right after Endgame, so it can make more money than Endgame, and then now they've re-released it yet again. So I'm like, this movie is going to keep hitting theaters. It's going to be a yearly thing at this point. I'm really hoping. I've been trying to figure out when the home release of this 4K version is going to be, right? So we can check that out. But alas, nothing's on the books just yet. So we'll keep you guys posted on that. Lastly, Mike, I just want to talk about the newest episode of She-Hulk. Were you able to watch it this week, by chance?
Yep,
okay.
Seen it.
Perfect. If you've not watched it, episode 6, you can walk away, watch it, come back, listen to this. Really, it's not much. No, we're not judging the quality of the show. I think it was very. This one was like a very short episode. I do enjoy that they were like, "Are we just gonna do a filler episode after teasing you?" Yes, we are. Like they literally are telling us what the internet is gonna complain about the day of the episode, which is very funny. But I thought it was very interesting that they were able to bring in Mr. Immortal from the Great Lakes Avengers into the show, and he was like a B plot for the actual episode. Did not expect that at all. Of all the characters to pull into your show, you grab Mr. Immortal.
Like, it was interesting. It was clever. I actually did enjoy like the creative thought process behind it. Of like, oh, what if this actually did happen? How would you litigate it? I thought that was humorous, but at the same time, this is the first instance where something's happening that I was initially worried about with this show. Of like, if you're going to introduce somebody that's super powered, you can't just not explain it, right? When it was the shape-shifting person that looked that was a fairy, they came from Asgard. Okay, we get that, right? But there's no explanation of where Mr. Immortal got his powers from. We haven't from who's the person that copyrighted
Titania.
Titania, right.
Yeah.
They haven't explained her origin yet, but I figured since she's still in the show, it could still come.
With her chip in her teeth, I think we're going to see that sooner than later. Like, because she's not, I guess she wouldn't be completely invulnerable like she's been selling herself, right? Like, I think we're going to find out about that one.
Yeah, and even when we saw those kind of quote-unquote construction workers, right, that were trying to steal Jennifer Walters' blood, they were using Asgardian construction worker stuff. Yeah, so it's just Marvel, you just can't. This is not going to work for me. And I don't know if this is going to be a problem moving forward, but I just want to call it out while it's here. You can't just introduce people with powers and not explain them. This isn't like a comic book, unfortunately, where you can just easily do that and write it in one little dialogue bubble, or sometimes even at the beginning of a comic there's like a little appendix that kind of explains characters. We don't have that luxury here. So if you're telling me that Mr. Immortal is this guy that's immortal, you got to tell me why he's immortal, right? Like where did he get it from? Has he how long has he been like this? He's been married a lot. Has he been like this his whole life? You gotta explain it. I don't know if they're ever gonna do that.
I'm gonna disagree completely because I don't care when it's run for a joke like this. The whole point of this was actually Mr. Immortal was set to be in that canceled New Warriors show with Squirrel Girl. Essentially that whole show is now out the gate, right? Like any hope that they were gonna revive that show from how long ago was that? Like 4 or 5 years ago. At this.
Oh yeah, it's been a while.
2017. That means they're not even gonna run that anymore. They're like, yep, we're gonna run this. But I thought it was interesting to pull. They're pulling D-list characters out to use them for this. Along the way, I also don't. I mean, again to your point, I think they could possibly come back and explain it. I think this show is smart enough to be like, look, we want to know how he did this, so we're gonna tell you how he did it, kind of thing. Like they don't. The show seems to answer its own problems or fallacies usually in the next episode pretty early on, if anything. So I definitely think we might get something about this. But I did enjoy the what was the I can't think of the assistant character's name in the show. She was able to kind of come to life here and do something creative with things like eight wives and a husband, right? That he had. So I think it was funny. The last thing is it's coming to light here. The villain is I guess running the group called the Intelligentsia. The Intelligentsia is interesting because this name has been introduced once other in the MCU, and that was with in Age of Ultron when they mentioned Ulysses Klaue was a former member of the Intelligentsia. I
don't recall that at all.
Yeah, it's like on this little biography card kind of thing when it holds it up there to read a little bit about it, like on a screen. The other thing, the Intelligentsia is also it's been a home for the leader, we just got confirmation is going to be the villain in Falcon and the, or what? Well, not Falcon and the Winter Soldier. What's that? Captain America 4: New World Order. So, MODOK has been a part of this, but MODOK, I think, in the MCU is going to be relegated to something else. So I think we're going to, again, this is going to lead into Captain America, right? I think the leader, the person who has Hulk blood in them, is probably going to be also going after Hulk blood, if you will, right? And this is another way to get around those distribution rights of having a solo version of those characters from the Incredible Hulk. So, I thought it was very interesting that they pulled that group of characters out, and based on who was in that group also created the Red Hulk. Mike, you're familiar with the Red Hulk, right? We've always talked about that coming into you. So that group is actually the one who took the Hulk's blood and created the other Hulks, including Red Hulk. So we're not going to get that simply because the passing of actor William Hurt, who played General Ross, but they could be creating more Hulks or doing something. So wanted to loop everybody in on that because I think that's a very big group name to drop at the end of the episode without any I guess bullet points. So we have 3 episodes left, 8, 7, 8, 9. We are missing an entire Daredevil episode, right? So do you think he's going to be next? Do you think he's going to be like saved for next to last as like a team up kind of thing?
I mean, at some point in time, right? He's got to be meeting on top of a parking garage in that yellow suit.
Yeah,
we're waiting for it.
Flip off a car. And then the other one is there's more Abomination to become, because we've seen some Abomination scenes where he's wearing that white jacket that he got out in. So I think we've got three episodes left and more. We're going to see how it goes, because my concern is I don't want them to wait to save the villain to the last episode. We need to know who it is sooner than later. So please start the next episode with this group, because we don't need to wait for it. All right, Mike, that is the episode for this week. If people know what you're up to, what you're doing, what can they get you at, man?
Well, they can find me at Mike Royer Design on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, and you can read my web comics at pickledcomics.com. Chris, if people want to find you, where are you?
Twitter, Valdan, Valdan, or Instagram, Valdan87. If people know about the show, what we're doing, our next review episode will probably be, Black Adam next month. Where can they get ready for all that stuff at?
Oh, all you got to do is head on over to superheroslate.com. That is the best place to find all the avenues we host our show. They got our awesome show notes, so if you want to check out that Black Panther cover or that Black Adam corrected trailer, we got that link over there in our show notes. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, wherever else you love to listen to find podcasts. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and get merch at superheroslate.com/store. We love hearing from you. Please reach out. Let us know what you're watching. What you're listening to. I'm always looking for music recommendations. Maybe you got some fun music you want to tell me about. Reach on out at superheroslate.com. If you want to be a super fan of the show, all you got to do is share the show with a friend, share the show with a buddy. We'll be here every week, folks.
That's right. We will catch you guys next week.
Bye.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe.